So it's quite a few. It may surprise you that it's that many with all the things that you see and all the opportunities you have to hear the gospel here. But among those that are lost here in the United States, we have 85 unreached people groups. And you might wonder what a people group is. It would be a group of people that identify as either a nation or a language group that is not, in this situation, not from the United States or doesn't share our culture. So within those cultures, there are 10 million people of 85 different people groups that all need to hear the gospel. And so NAM is really a key part of making sure that they do hear it through the missionaries that are sent out. And when these international people that are here, even if they're living here permanently, hear the gospel and respond, they can not only share with their families, but they can also then share with people back home, wherever they have come from. So that's some interesting stats just on, I would say, general lostness in North America and the United States. But on the college campus ministries, which is what we were asked to talk about, I think it's important to know that when students leave high school and they go to start college, of those that claim to be saved when they leave high school and start college as a person identifying as one who's been saved by Jesus, 70 to 85% of those students, when they leave college at graduation, 70 to 85% of them will say they no longer believe. So those are Barna research numbers, and it's kind of scary to think about, but it shows some of the reasons why North American missions are so important right here in our own hometown. One of the reasons for that might be an immature faith of the believer. So it could be that those that were here, we know they can't lose their salvation, but it could be that they were immature in their faith, and perhaps by not being prepared enough to enter the college realm or the adult world, that perhaps they've been reasoned with by others who don't believe and kind of fallen by the wayside as far as their growth or as far as any future involvement in church. So we'll have a lot of true believers who kind of fall off and kind of just are not really discipled anymore after that period of time. Another reason could be lack of discipleship on the college campuses. It's kind of a war zone there, and one of the things that we see is that not just individuals, but social media, the universities themselves, professors, most of them have a very strong worldly agenda. And as a result, it's very important that our students that go off to college or even go locally have good ministries there on campus to help keep them discipled, not just on campus, but in their churches too. So it's one of the reasons why Kelly and I are so thankful for you guys at this church, because you do so much to help us and to support us and to make it possible for us to be with these people on a regular basis throughout the week. Another statistic that you might find interesting, and I know I've shared this one before, and to date I've not seen any change, but it's on the flip side. It's the good side of students going off to campuses where there are ministries, and that would be that of those that get saved after childhood, so those that are 18 and older that get saved as an adult. So we're not saved, but get saved after the age of 18. 94% of those people that get saved after the age of 18 get saved by the time they're 24. So it's a very small number, and we know, I mean, it's difficult to reach older people. We get more set in our ways. We don't want to be told what to think. But during that period, I mean, most are saved as youth and as children. That's the truth. But if we've missed them, or if the churches have missed them, college campuses are one of the greatest places to meet these young adults who are the next most likely to believe and receive salvation. So great opportunities on campus, and I'd like to share with you guys 4 areas where Kelly and I minister. The first would be right here at MRBC. You probably know us as being part of the pastoral, or me being part of the pastoral staff, but us together being college missionaries that are here in your church, and teaching the college life group on Sunday mornings. And that's part of what you see, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just the teaching aspect here. We do a lot with the relationship building. I don't know if you guys have seen us around the church, but most of the time it seems like we're hanging out talking to people in that age range or younger than talking with our peers, so to speak. And that's intentional. We want to get to know these guys. We want to get involved in their lives. We care about them, and we want them to not walk away from their faith or be lost in the shuffle when that time comes. So a lot of it is relationship, and a lot of it is one-on-one discipleship and small group discipleship. So here at church, there's just a lot that goes on that we don't always see. So currently, just as a piece of information as far as students that have come through and been discipled through our college ministry, or those who are currently being discipled right here at MRBC. I'm not even talking about the campuses, this first arm of our ministry here. Right now, we see them, and this is over the past year, we've had students that are either former or current that are teaching and leading life groups here at the church. Some are youth workers here, some are worship leaders, some are church planters. We look at 1-8 Church that went out with Ben and Alyssa Fleet, and Creasa, Ryan, Manuel, Austin Manuel, Tori Manuel, they went to be part of the team. So we love to see these people not only staying in church, but ministering as well and growing in their faith. For Creekside, Chris came through our ministry. That was a blessing, working with him. He was one of the people that was in our house every Thursday, and we talked often and went over many things. And now, we're not saying that's because of us, but it's a piece of it, is what God was doing through collegiate ministry and keeping people involved at that young adult age when so many are falling away. Now I look and I praise the Lord that he has stayed faithful. He's got a faithful family, and he's now preparing to go out, or actually starting to plant a church already. And with him, we have Jason and Christy Kogelman, who are a big part of our ministry, are going off to help. Mark Sabat is going to help as well. And Grace Ferraro, who's new to our college ministry, but she's going to go be a part of that as well. So we're praising the Lord for using these people in and beyond their youth years, and that we're not seeing them fall away. We've got nursery workers in the church, some that are helping us with campus outreach. We've had some short-term foreign missionaries. Grace was one that went to Puerto Rico over this last year. Evangelism partners, we've got students from here that regularly go out and evangelize. You may not be aware of that, but there are some that are going. Grace is a good example of that. In fact, it's not at all uncommon for her to be outreaching people at Schoolcraft or other places where she is. And one of the things that shocked us, we had a new neighbor move in this summer next door to us. So we've seen them a lot of times. We talk over the fence. They have a daughter. It's a divorce situation, and they have a daughter who only lives there occasionally, usually lives with her father in Livonia. So we didn't know that she existed and had never seen her. She showed up at our door a few Thursday nights ago because she had been invited to Thursday night Bible study by Grace Ferraro. So what a blessing. And it's funny because when she came to our door, she'd never met us and she was a little nervous, so she brought her 13-year-old brother. And I know that you would think that would not necessarily be a comfort. Well, we knew the brother because he comes through the neighborhood selling candy bars and different things, and we've had conversations with him. So the first thing he says is, can I come too? So we're thinking about this, and I'm going, okay, this is a college Bible study. Don't know if this kid has ever been to church or any detail about his life. So I just asked him, I said, are you pretty mature? Would you be able to handle being in a college group? And he goes, oh, yeah, of course. And which is what they would all say, of course. Well, honestly, he did a great job. He's come 2 or 3 times now with his sister, and last week we had the opportunity to share the gospel with him, and he had so many deep, real questions. So even through this, there's family members that are getting reached. So we've seen many things in that, and I think even, you guys know Chris and Kevin too. I mean, we helped to disciple them. We're not the only ones, but that was a big part of when they heard their call was, I think, at least partially during the times that we were working with them. So God is working among the young people here at Merriman Road, and there's some really cool things going on. You may or may not know that Grace Ferraro also is going to be going out this summer under an organization of NAM called Gen Send, so sending the generations out. And this is a program that's funded by NAM, and Annie Armstrong Easter Offering and our cooperative program pays for most of what's going to happen for her. She and a number of girls are going to be going, and students, not just girls, but she specifically is going to Los Angeles to work with a church planting team to help them for 8 full weeks this summer. You may think, well, that's not a big deal because she's off, but with college costs what they are, giving up 8 weeks of work time that would allow you to pay for school is a big deal. So NAM comes in, and what they do, which is such a blessing, is they don't then add a lot of expense on top for these students who are already losing the chance to earn money for school, but they take the money that we give and they say, here's an opportunity for us to invest in people who can go and do this work. So she is one of many around the United States that are going out to do work. And NAM provides for her housing, for her transportation, for all of the work project money. You may know also that this Sunday, Grace has a fundraising dinner coming up here at the church. By the way, tonight's the last night to sign up, so we're hoping that you, like us, will sign up tonight. We're already planning to be there, but we haven't signed up yet, so just a little confession there. But so Grace has to raise an additional $900, which compared to the cost of living in LA for 8 weeks is practically nothing, but it's still a big hurdle for a young college student to raise $900. But what NAM does with that too, even that is well spent and well taken care of, because what's going to happen is she raises this $900 so that she doesn't just, it's kind of to prove that you don't just want to go on a trip to LA. So, but NAM even uses that money that she raises then when she gets there to return it back to her in the form of a gift card to pay for food. So they cover everything, and then you raise this $900 independently, but it goes into NAM, and the NAM even sends that back to you to take care of more, and it gives them a little skin in the game so that they don't back out at the last minute. So it's a lot of things that are going on with that. Another area where Kelly and I minister is at Wayne State University. And you guys know that we do a coffee house down there, and you know that last year and the year before we did a big push for Keurig pods and things like that to be able to open this up and get things going. And we've combined the coffee house with another function of outreach, which is working with another group called Faith and Reason. If you haven't heard of Faith and Reason, they're on many college campuses around America. And what they do is their primary target audience is reaching Muslims. And how they reach Muslims is by advertising conversations on usually moral topics. So things that would be of interest to anybody, whether it be a religious person, a non-religious person, or whatever. And then in the course of those meetings, we have open discussion about whatever the topic of the week is. But then at the end, we always get an opportunity to share the Christian perspective, which is also a bridge to the gospel. So we've seen students coming for that. This semester, we're also doing something called we call it our non-Christian Bible study. That may sound crazy. Actually, I even had a young man call this week that saw our flyer at Wayne State. And he said, I need to know something. Is a non-Christian Bible study a Bible study run by non-Christians, or is it run by Christians to help reach non-Christians? And I said, yes, the second. So our idea behind that, we explain it on the flyer in more detail, but the bold part that they see is non-Christian Bible study, which if you're a Christian, you kind of go, what? And if you're a non-Christian, you go, well, maybe I might want to check this out, learn something about the Bible. The idea behind it is that it's for people who either have never been exposed to the Bible and feel afraid to come to a Bible study, knowing that this is going to be open for all of their questions, as well as simple topics to go over. But we also try to put out there, too, that it's fine for Christians to come, too. Just understand it's going to be a basic Bible study, and that we're going to have a lot of people that don't understand everything that we already do as Christians. So that's another thing we have going on at Wayne State. In fact, in this year's ministry update, you'll see an update from a girl, or a few comments from a young lady named Delaney. She is a Spanish-speaking student. She has English too, but in the home they speak Spanish, and her English isn't real good. But she's been coming regularly and has had a lot of great questions about the faith. So we've seen God working even through that. The other area that you hear more about, I think, is Schoolcraft College. And I would say that of the two campuses, that's definitely the larger ministry. We see a lot more students coming through. There's just more spiritual openness on the campus of Schoolcraft. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of always been that way. You can put in 3-to-1 effort at Wayne State, like 3 times as much work, to get 1/3 or less of the payback as far as reaching people. So Schoolcraft is really a neat place because it is so open. But there we do weekly Bible studies. We also do small group meetings. We do one-on-one discipleship with students. And the way that we approach that as missionaries is we want everybody that comes to hear the gospel. So every week the gospel is shared, and every week there's always a bridge to the gospel, either in the beginning, the middle, or the end, depending upon where it fits in. But we try to also do something else during those meetings. We talked about how 70 to 85% of students that claim to be believers when they come into college leave college at graduation saying that they no longer believe. So part of what we try to do is a deeper level of discipleship. So we try to really hit some of the hard things, some of the things that aren't usually covered. I would even venture to say in most churches. You know, that how many of you guys have studied in depth on the minor prophets before? You might think, well, what in the world, Kelly's raising her hand, but you might think, what in the world does Zephaniah or Haggai have to do with the gospel? And, you know, there are bridges in every book of the Bible. Every part points to Jesus. But what we find is that when we open these books, students that have been Christians for a long time say, I've never read this before. I would not have been prepared to handle somebody coming at me with a picture of, like, why did God choose Israel and not the rest of the world? Why did he not care about everybody else before? Throughout these books, you see that God has always cared about the whole world, and you get much more depth, and you can put a lot of meat on the bones for these students that grew up in church. So that's another part of what happens at Schoolcraft College. I'd like to share, too, about, I think I had shared just briefly on a Sunday morning that a young man named Yahya had come to faith. His story is that he's been coming for a number of years, I'd say probably 4 or 5 now, and is from a Muslim background and always claimed to be Muslim and wanted nothing to do with the gospel or anything about trusting Jesus, but he did find the Bible interesting. So he always wanted to come and listen to what we had to say. And he would often, I wouldn't say heckle, but ask a lot of questions that were almost off color. His language was very colorful. There were probably more 4-letter words in his vocabulary during a Bible study than you would hear on most street corners. So just a very interesting guy, and usually when he would come in, you know, people that had never seen him before would kind of be like, who is this guy? You know, so we would try to tone him down, but it really wasn't going to happen. But over the course of 4 or 5 years, just this past year, he came to a point, his mother passed away, and we talked numerous times about many things, but he finally came to a point where he saw that Jesus truly is the Messiah and that he truly needed him for salvation and came to faith. And as a loud, outspoken individual, he is now a loud, outspoken individual about his faith. So you can pray for him as he shares, but pray too that he would be kind, I guess, in his sharing. So his natural personality is to jump on people. So combining that with the love of Christ I think that's an area where he'll need to grow. Another young man is Ben. He's one that came from a church where he said he didn't get discipled much, and he's in a young adult ministry at another church, and he said they really don't do much in depth. So he said for him, going through these books and hearing, I guess, putting the meat on the flesh or on the bones again is really key to him and his faith growing. And Ben has been very excited about growing in his faith and has been inviting lots of other students from Schoolcraft to come to Bible study with him. So that's been an exciting thing to see. Another young man named Shahroz. He is from Pakistan and comes from a Muslim family. He's new this year on campus, just came here in September as a student that's never been in the United States before, and had never heard the gospel before. And he has come back every week, maybe with 1 or 2 misses throughout the whole school year, and stays after regularly to talk for sometimes an hour or more about the gospel and what it means. He has not accepted Christ yet, but he has definitely heard the gospel many times. So he's my who's your one. When you say who's your one, Shahroz is my, there are many personal missions, but he's, I guess, the one that God has really put on my heart to really make sure that he fully grasps all of this. And then another great thing that we see is, I mentioned Grace Ferraro. She comes up a lot here because she has such a missionary heart, but she also has invited people, not just to the Schoolcraft studies, but she's, as I said, my neighbor, but not just my neighbor, many other people too have come to our Thursday night Bible studies because of Grace. Also at Schoolcraft, we've worked with the Gideons. We do that every year, passing out Bibles. They're not allowed on campus, we found out, unless they're sponsored by a group. I guess years ago there was an incident where they were maybe a little overzealous, and leadership at Schoolcraft said they're not allowed. So we found a loophole where they can be allowed as long as we're with them. So that's been a great partnership as well. InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, many of you have heard of them. They're on campuses all around, well, really all around the world, but a lot in the U.S. They also are not recognized on campus, not for any reason other than I think they're short on missionary staff, which is another issue that we see. But the missionaries that are in the area have asked, would it be okay if we came in under your umbrella and maybe discipled some people on days you're not here, something like that. So we've worked out a partnership with them where they meet people and funnel them into our group, but if there's people that can't come when we're there, we funnel them over there. So they're hearing the gospel from multiple avenues. And then our Thursday night Bible study. This might be the most overlooked one, and because we think of it as just an MRBC Bible study. You know, it started that way. Back in 2003, when we first started working with the college students in the fall of 2002, we asked the students after the first of the year in 2003, we said, would you guys be interested in coming into our home and doing like more study during the week? And we had 5 students at the time, and they all said yes, and they all came and they started bringing friends, and it's grown. But over the years, we've seen it transition. I would say now that we probably have maybe 20% of our regulars are from the church here. And others that we see there, this is just in the last year. Kelly and I sat down and we brainstormed. We talked about the students that come and what schools they go to. And we had never really put this together till just this last couple of weeks. But we discovered that on our Thursday night study, we get students from Wayne State. This is regularly, not just they showed up once. Wayne State, Schoolcraft College, Madonna University, Washtenaw Community College, Henry Ford Community College, Eastern Michigan University, University of Michigan Dearborn, University of Michigan Ann Arbor, Wayne County Community College, and at least one trade school that we know of one of our regulars is coming from. And then in addition to that, we have others that aren't in school but are in the age range that still like to come. So we're seeing a lot happening, through what God's doing. And a lot of that is because of the church and the fact that we were able to be sent out under NAM. So as missionaries of NAM, we receive great blessings. Part of it is being able to be a part of a church that is part of the cooperative program. Now, we've told you before that our particular funding doesn't really come from NAM, but we do get support through training and other things like that, as well as many other Mission Service Corps missionaries. But the NAM money goes to a lot of really great things. And church planting is a big part of it. Generation Send or Gen Send is another part of it. And if you guys go on the NAM website, you'll be blown away by how much is out there and how much is going on around North America. And that's, again, because of our cooperative program giving throughout the year, and then the special emphasis giving during the Annie Armstrong Easter Offering, which is going on now. So, and again, I just want to mention too that with whether you give to our ministry or to Annie Armstrong Easter Offering, hopefully, you're able to do something for both. That's not the point, though. The point is that God is getting the glory for these things that are happening, and He's using whatever you give to reach people for Him. So, just seeing so many things. A couple of our students they actually are students that were first discipled here through our youth ministry, and then actually after COVID ended up going to other churches. But you probably know Matt Fernandez and Savannah Leffler. They are two that, though they've kind of moved on, I guess in their walk, some things have changed for them. But they're still coming on Thursday nights, and we're still involved in their life on a regular basis. And both of them had opportunity last summer to go on mission. So we would consider that, I guess, part of our Thursday night. We worked with them to help support them, to pray with them, to help make decisions on going on these trips. And Matt Fernandez actually went to Japan, and he spent a month in Japan. He actually went as a team leader. He led 5 other young people to go and share the gospel and support indigenous missionaries that are in Japan. You may not know this about Matt, but for years on his own, he's so quiet. For years on his own, he was studying online to learn Japanese. Now, he's from the Philippines. He doesn't speak any Japanese, or anything close. but he took it upon himself without taking classes to learn. And he has actually become so fluent that when he was in Japan, many of the people thought he was native born. Very smart guy. So he went on this trip, led some people. They led a number of people to the Lord and worked with the missionary families there as well. He is planning to go back this summer, so that's another young person, that's going out and doing things for the Lord. But he's also, something else just happened. I just found out this week that he got accepted to a university in Japan, and it's a Christian university, and the reason he wants to go there is to be raised up in the culture as well as more of the language, but the Christian training as well, to become a Japanese pastor. So he won't be Japanese, but he'll be a pastor in Japan. So that is his goal, and that's what he's working toward. Savannah was the other one that I mentioned, and she spent her whole summer, this past summer, in South Sudan, so in Africa, working with missionaries there and working to teach children. In the morning, she was helping the missionaries with their children and their homeschooling, taking care of toddlers. In the afternoon, she was helping at a Christian school. She was also part of regular daily Bible studies and prayer groups, and went out on her own quite often, which from what I understand was quite dangerous. But they told her, please don't do this, and she said, no, I have to. Going out into areas where indigenous people were in the city and just talking to them about Jesus, and made some friends and was able to lead one girl to Christ. So she's kept in touch with her throughout as well. So we do see so much happening with the young people and with what's going on, not just on our campuses, but even in our church, in our home. God is just using people all over the place. I'd like to ask Chris Babb, if he wouldn't mind, coming and just sharing a little testimony about, maybe the influence that collegiate ministry had on him, but maybe also something about church planting and how that all works.
Yes, as Rob said, I am a NAM-supported church planter, and we are moving right along. We just started our core team meetings in the community, and those have been great. We've had 2, and we've had multiple people kind of fluctuate between the 2 weeks, and we're really excited to see how that continues to grow. However, I wanted to spend the majority of the time I have up here to speak on Rob and Kelly and their influence on me and through the college ministry. They always start out reaching out to seniors in high school and saying, hey, you're welcome to come to our Thursday night Bible study, the one that they had just mentioned. And so I was excited to go as a senior in high school. I went a few times. Couldn't consistently get there just because of school, and it was late at night. It started at, I think, 9 at that time, so it was a little harder to get there as a high schooler. I think it now starts at 7, right? Yeah, so that's all right. So, doing that and just having the experience and the comfort level to then, when I was in college, felt comfortable just going every single week. Felt like I was already part of the group, of the community, and to be there, very welcoming. As a 18-year-old guy, they had snacks and pop every week, so I was like, yeah, this is great. But we also studied the Word of God, in depthly and deeply, which was great and very foundational for my spiritual development. Because as we continued, I spent a year consistently going there, and there was a friend of mine that was heading on a mission trip, and she was trying to recruit other people to go with her, and everybody was saying no, because it was in the Philippines, which is very far away. And it was very expensive. It was through the IMB. It was through their hands-on program, and it was a whole semester that we were going to be gone. And at the time, Rob and Kelly were leading a mission study, and what they do incredibly well, I believe, is mobilize missionaries. They are good at mobilizing people and casting vision for the need of the gospel. And so, as I had just turned 19 when I had decided to go and join. Her name was Chelsea on this trip. We spent 4 months in the Philippines with a small team there, and I think that was what kick-started my ministry journey, really. And so because of that and the encouragement that they provided the entire time, there was one particular instance when we were trying to figure out, I was trying to get all the paperwork done because there's all sorts of paperwork, and I'm emailing correspondence back and forth between this person who worked for the IMB, and we weren't really getting anywhere, and out of nowhere, they said, well, you're not going. And I was like, well, what? What do you mean? So I was trying to get a hold of them and figure out what was going on, and I called Kelly at the time just try to see, like, okay, can you help me with this, because I'm not really sure where to go. And that was the first time she told me she loved me. Yeah. On accident, really. And from that, we started joking about how she was my mother, right? She's my mom, my second mom. But that was how she treats, I think, all of us college students as, they're kids that they want to disciple, and they have a very deep bond with them. Yeah, it was actually really funny because, we had formulated a plan. We were hanging up the phone, and she says, okay, I love you, bye. And I was like, I love you too. Hung up the phone, and I was like, all right, that was weird. But it wasn't that weird. It was just kind of something we brushed off because, that was the relationship that we had and that spiritual development. And they were greatly encouraging when my wife and I, she was my girlfriend at the time, decided to go to Boyce College and get a biblical education. And they've been supportive of us in everything that we've done. Even still, Rob comes up into the youth and helps out on Wednesday nights when he can, and it's just, great. And, like I said, they're just very good about mobilizing people for the sake of the gospel, and you hear that through the way that they have spoken about all of these people, not just myself, but any of these numerous people that they've mentioned. I know without a doubt that Rob and Kelly had a great impact on that through their ministry with the college students. And so, I want to say thank you, but also, they're wonderful at what they do. They're very gifted.
Well, thank you, Chris. We love you. But you know how Paul Harvey used to always say, the rest of the story. If you're older than me, you probably know, or as old as me. But the rest of the story actually is quite funny with that story about the I love you. The reason Kelly told me afterwards when she realized she had said it, she says, oh my goodness, I just told Chris Babb that I love him. And I said, well, what was that all about? And she explained a little further. She goes, the conversation was so much like a parent with their child that I really felt like I had just spoken with Ashley or Austin about some major life event that they were struggling with. And so at the end of the phone call, it just felt like you say, I love you, bye. And she said, but as soon as I realized how that sounded, she said, I was quite worried. Well, Chris, of course, doesn't let those things go. So what none of you probably know, maybe a couple of you, but I'm going to guess 90% of you don't know, was that during one of our Easter dramas, Kelly was playing Mary in the Easter drama, and Chris was playing Jesus. And Chris had just been brought down off of the cross, and as a very special, tender moment, they laid Chris with his head on Kelly's lap, and she, as Mother Mary, had to sing to her darling son. So after she finished the solo, Chris peeked up, and nobody saw this, and just said, I love you, Mom. So that's the rest of the story. But yes, we do strive for those relationships with people, not necessarily in that exact way, but to really let people know that they are part of the family, that we do care about them, and that we want to be involved in their lives. And we want to speak into their lives in a way that when they have serious questions about their faith, they know they can come and talk to somebody. In fact, this Friday, just as an example, it's usually our day off, but Kelly is going out to coffee with a young lady, and this is a neat story too, because she's a U of M Dearborn student, and we don't do a ministry on that campus, but she had seen an online flyer for Schoolcraft College's Bible study, so she drove to Schoolcraft to come to our Bible study and then started coming to our Thursday night studies. And just this past Thursday, after we had gone through a very strong gospel presentation, she shared with us, and I believe she's a believer. I have no reason to doubt it. But she came up and she said, could I talk with you guys? I really am doubting whether I'm truly a believer. I don't know for sure that I even know what I believe. So first thing Kelly says is, well, what are you doing this week? When can we get together for coffee? So this girl loves coffee, and so does Kelly. So Friday they're going out for coffee. So pray for a young girl named Mary who is going through a lot of struggles right now. We just met her in the last 2 months. But I want you to know, too, that this love that we have for the students is not something that just we have. You see it in our youth ministry with the leaders that are in the youth ministry. You also see it through NAM missionaries. One of the things that comes out over and over again through the many missionary stories that you hear is the relationships that are built when these people go on mission, and the ability that they have to speak into the lives of both non-believers and sometimes struggling believers, and in not only leading them to hear the gospel and that the Holy Spirit might call them to salvation, but that they are being used then to make these people feel welcome and to plug them in to local churches. So we're seeing this kind of love of Christ happening all over, and NAM is a big part of that. I want to get a little bit into some of the funding and what NAM does. So we already talked about how collegiate ministry is kind of a unique arm. We're under something called Mission Service Corps. There are more than 3,700 Mission Service Corps missionaries currently in North America serving. And most of these raise their own support. We get training from NAM and stuff like that, but this is not where most of the giving to the Annie Armstrong Easter Offering goes. But I don't want to downplay that. Just because we're not under that umbrella, we've been very blessed by godly people and godly churches that come alongside and take that on additionally. And that should always, if I haven't said so, should always be above the tithe to your church, in this case, Merriman Road. But the other thing that we see that NAM does is just so much. I mean, we could not be planting all these churches all over the place. Chris and Casey could not be going out. Ben Fleet could not have gone out. So many of these people that we know and love, and even those that we don't, are out starting churches, reaching areas where it's been determined that the gospel is greatly needed. Sometimes it's among one of those 85 indigenous people groups. Sometimes it's among regular, everyday Americans who have lived there their whole life, but have just never had something close to their home where they could be part of a church community and hear about Jesus. So NAM does support also 2,469 other missionaries, and these would be the ones that mostly where our Annie Armstrong Easter Offering and our cooperative program money goes. If you don't know the difference, I know that sometimes mission education is a little hard to understand, but if you don't know the difference between what's the cooperative program and what's the Annie Armstrong Easter Offering, well, the cooperative program is just what it sounds like. It's a cooperation between churches all over North America that give money to a central location through the North American Mission Board, an arm of the Southern Baptist Convention, and this happens throughout the year. So when you give tithes and offerings throughout the year, some of that is designated in the budget that we vote on as a church to go to NAM and to go to this cooperative program to help these missionaries. But you may know that, like with anything else, when you have literally 2,469 families, is what this really represents, that are on mission for God, and many of them are completely full-time and counting on support from churches to do their work, what we give throughout the year isn't always enough. So there's a special emphasis where we really focus on North America, and that's right now, and that's what the Annie Armstrong Easter Offering is. It's named after a North American missionary from the past. In fact, I won't go into it, but on the green flyer, there's some information about her background. But it's an opportunity for us as individuals to give over and above our tithe in a special offering or a series of special offerings through these weeks to try to help these missionaries be able to do even more. And honestly, there's a major portion of their funding that comes from this Easter time offering. So they do so many things. What Grace Ferraro is doing, what Chris and Casey are doing. So many, and I know I've said that, but I just want to make sure that we see how it personally affects the people around us as well. So right now, for the United States, the goal for the Annie Armstrong Easter Offering is $75 million. Sounds big, and it is big. But our personal goal for our church, does anybody know what it is? I do, but does anybody know? Darlene knows. What is it? That's right, yes. $14,000. So as a church, Marion Road Baptist Church has a goal of, above our tithes and offerings, collecting $14,000 to help these missionaries who are on mission every day around North America. So that's something that we can give to, something that we can do. Just wanted to see that so many areas, and I don't want to sound like the guy that's always asking for money. Because honestly, I like to think of it the way that Paul does. Paul says, I'm not looking for what may be given to me or to this other organization or our organization together, but we're looking for what might be put into the account of the believers. Paul says, as the Philippians gave to support his work, that it was really a credit to their account. So it's like the treasure principle, if you've heard that, of you can't take it with you, but you can send it on ahead. So the idea being that what we do for Christ here on this earth lasts. So when we can't necessarily all go on these mission trips, and I understand that. And God has not called everybody to devote their lives full time to missions. Yes, in the sense that we should always be sharing at work, after work, with family, with friends. But in the sense of being a full-time missionary, many just can't do it, can't go. There are many jobs that we're called to do and people we're called to reach in the workplace. But many of us who can't go have another gift of being able to help fund those that can, and that's really what this does. So as you have opportunity this season to give to the Annie Armstrong Easter Offering, I ask you to do it wholeheartedly and to think about those that will hear the gospel, because even though you maybe couldn't go, you could help send, and that's really what we're here for. So I'd like to say that the other piece that's vital, and probably in reality more vital than the giving, though I'm not saying don't give, the Lord uses that. We're in a physical world and he uses physical help. But the other piece that we so often overlook is prayer. So we have about 15 minutes left here, and I'm going to ask that nobody sneak out. You were thinking I was going to keep talking till 7, and usually I talk so much that it would be even later. But I want you guys to have an opportunity to talk, and not to me, but to God. So what I'd like us to pray for, here's just a few things. First would be the Annie Armstrong Easter Offering. Pray specifically about how you might be a part of that, and for others to be giving, and that it would be used for the things that God is doing around North America. We would ask personally that you would pray for our campus ministry, but not just ours, but college students all across the country. And even though it's a North American study, you can pray for those around the world. We all need Christ. And then for our church planters, there are so many of them that are out planting now, and some that are still preparing. But specifically, I'd like you to pray for Chris and Casey and their team. Pray also for Ben and Alyssa and their team. And if you know of others, please share that. I'm going to have you get in small groups in just a moment. Share that with your groups. And then short-term projects. They're often overlooked, but Chris Babb had an excellent point. When he went to the Philippines, even though it was, I would call it a long-term in the sense of a college student giving up a semester to go overseas when they've never been outside a home is a big deal. But it is short-term, it was probably 3 or 4 months total. But that is a time when God really speaks to these students. So these short-term missionaries like Grace, I want you to be praying for her and for others like her, for Savannah, for Matt, for others that will be going out on mission, for our high school and junior high students. They are hearing this tonight, and I'm praising God for that. But there are many things that you guys can do too, and a lot of things that you can get prepared to do. So be encouraged by those that are going out, but also as small groups tonight, I want us to be praying for them. So the Annie Armstrong Easter Offering, campus ministry, church planters, and short-term missionaries of many kinds. And then you also will have opportunity, because I know it is the Wednesday night usual prayer meeting. I'd like you also to take time to share with one another in your small groups, things that you could pray for each other. But let me close us in prayer, and then I'm going to ask that if you would get into groups of maybe 3 or 4 and just kind of find your own little spot. You can move around, good for the circulation, and just sit down together, pray for these things and things that you have in your group. But let me close us in prayer, and don't run out. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to be in your house tonight and to share some of what you're doing, not just on campus, but throughout North America. Lord, I pray for these tonight that will be praying to you, Lord. I pray that you put on their hearts the things that you would both have them to do and even the things that you would have them to ask you tonight, Lord. I pray that as they pray on behalf of others, that you would just guide and lead them in their conversation with you. In Jesus' name, amen. Groups of 3 or 4, and again, now you have 13 minutes.